Hi there. I'm glad you could join me today for this Facebook Live, and I'm coming to you from Austin, Texas. My name is Scott Kampschafer, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker here, and I wanted to talk to you today about treating grief with image transformation therapy. And before I get into the particulars of image transformation therapy, I did want to talk about what a devastating experience grief can be for many people, especially what they call complicated grief, which is a form of grief that typically extends beyond like 6 months to a year, which is considered to be the normal period of grieving. And typically people who are grieving a loss experience a lot of sadness, but there can also be other symptoms of grief, including a lot of guilt, self-blame, emotional numbness, anger, depression, which is, interestingly enough, typically caused by grief that is unresolved. So the main thing is that if you are able to deal with and resolve your grief, then basically the future is clear for you. But if you're not, there can be some important things that the experience of counseling and therapy can bring to help get you past the loss. And a lot of people who deal with loss feel like they'll never be the same again, they'll never be themselves. And yes, after you've lost a loved one, life will never be the same again. But that doesn't mean that you can't get back to kind of being at least somewhat like your old self, and the feeling and experience of normalcy that can make the rest of your life more endurable and bearable. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is how image transformation therapy, which is a type of therapy that I practice, can help treat grief. And image transformation therapy is a developing and newer form of therapy, typically considered to be a trauma therapy, a lot like EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. But it involves a breathing and visualization technique, which is simpler for many people to get into and work with than EMDR. So when people experience a loss, there can be the shock and devastation. There can be a traumatic factor that's involved in it, and there can be many layers to the experience of grief, and not just this experience of sadness that most people would normally associate with a loss. But the thing that image transformation therapy does is it helps to take and deal with all the different layers that can be on top of that loss, which is typically can be shock, can typically be freeze reactions, can be experience of trauma, especially if the loss was devastating and sudden, along with a feeling of emptiness that can tend to go with loss of someone significant, like a spouse. Those things can be so devastating that they can leave us with a feeling of emptiness. And the great thing about image transformation therapy is it treats all these different layers that go with the grief, and it does it in can be a quicker fashion than EMDR, which can take a longer amount of time to go through. The image transformation therapy tends to move quicker, and it helps address these layers more specifically. In particular, that experience of shock, which results in a feeling of emotional numbness for people that can carry on for the rest of their lives. So, and what it does is it tends to, as I mentioned in a previous video, it tends to dissolve these other layers so that people can tend to move on with their lives and have a greater ability to move on with their lives that they don't necessarily have if they don't get counseling, if the counseling isn't effective for some reason. Some people have been known to grieve losses for 10 or more years, and that is where we'd really say, hey, come on, it can be important for you to get some help with this. And the great thing is that now there's more therapies that are available to help with clearing out the grief, and image transformation therapy happens to be one of those. So if you're somebody who wants to help take care of your grief, and you've got this grief issue that you've been sitting on for years, then I really encourage you to get some help. And if you're in the Austin, Texas area, I really encourage you to reach out to me or somebody else who's qualified. you can call me at my number that's on the Facebook page or on my website, and I can talk with you for about 15 minutes and get an idea of whether I could help you or not. You can also message me via email or here on Facebook as well. But I really encourage you to get the help that you need, because it's hard enough to have dealt with a serious loss in your life, even if it's just the loss of a pet, which can be devastating for folks. And to get the help that you need to be able to move on with your life, because our loved ones and our losses happen, but we need to be able to move on with our lives to the best of our ability. And if it's weighed down with unresolved grief, especially if it's complicated grief, that's something people aren't meant to carry with them the rest of their days. So I really appreciate you watching today, and I wish you the best as far as mental health in general. And if there's anything I can do to help you along the way, especially if you reside here in Central Texas in the Austin metro area, please do give me a call and we can talk. But thanks again for watching, and have a great day.